Your 40s hit different. One morning, Lucas woke up before his alarm. Not because he was rested. Because his mind wouldn't stop running. The house was quiet, but his thoughts were loud. He walked to the kitchen.
Coffee.
Silence.
Phone.
Balance stable. Income strong. Life heavy. And that contrast disturbed him more than any financial problem ever had. Because nothing was technically wrong. And yet, nothing felt secure. On paper, Lucas was successful. But inside, something felt fragile. A quiet pressure that never left. Even during good days. He remembered his 30s. The hustle. The promotions. The long nights. He thought freedom would come with success. But instead, responsibility multiplied. Teenagers. Parents aging. Mortgage. Expectations. And something else no one talks about. The fear of becoming irrelevant. Because high performers are rewarded early, but rarely taught how to sustain momentum. And one thought he couldn't ignore. What if I did all this and it still isn't enough? That morning something shifted. Because your 40s are not just another decade. They are a decision point. They expose the gap between income and autonomy. This is where high performers either build autonomy or build a more expensive prison. Most people never realize this. They stay busy. They earn more. They upgrade their lives. And quietly, they lose leverage. They become dependent on a lifestyle they cannot pause. That's when Sarah entered Lucas's life. Not with motivation. With clarity. She said, "If you understand this, you change your financial life."
Her voice was calm,
but precise. The kind of clarity that cuts through noise. Your 40s are when money can start working harder for you than you work for it. But only if you stop thinking like an earner and start thinking like an owner. This is the kind of thing rich people do differently. Let's simplify money today. Because the real wealth-building magic in your 40s has nothing to do with hustle. It has everything to do with systems. Lucas thought he was behind. But Sarah showed him something surprising. Most people are not behind because they started late. They are behind because they never change strategy. They keep trading time for income. And time always wins. It is undefeated. The first shift was simple. Not more effort. More direction. 6 times your salary saved by 50. This wasn't a number. It was a threshold. A psychological tipping point. Because once you cross it, compound interest stops being theoretical. It becomes momentum. Lucas saw the math. And for the first time, the future looked predictable. Not perfect. Predictable. And predictability creates calm. But most people never reach this point. Because debt keeps them trapped. High income. High payments. No freedom. Sarah explained something brutal. You cannot build wealth while funding your past. Credit cards. Car upgrades. Lifestyle inflation. Each one was a chain. And most chains look normal. Ownership requires oxygen. Debt removes oxygen. Lucas began cutting quietly.
No announcements. No social media.
Just discipline. And something strange happened. His stress dropped faster than his expenses. Because stability is emotional. Not just financial. The next shift shocked him. Emergency funds were not boring. They were power. Options. Confidence. The ability to say no. Scarcity makes people desperate. And desperate people make expensive decisions. Here money works for you. Because when you are not afraid, you negotiate better. You think longer. You act strategically. Lucas realized his real enemy wasn't low income. It was urgency. And urgency is the most expensive emotion in the world. Then came the most uncomfortable truth. One income is fragile, even if it's high, especially if it's high, because dependency scales with lifestyle. So he began building streams. Not hustle, leverage, skills, consulting, investments, assets that grow when you rest. This is where high performers finally escape, not by working more, but by multiplying themselves. This is where identity begins to change. From employee to architect, the next layer was invisible: taxes. Sarah showed Lucas how the wealthy don't just earn. They protect, shelter, structure. Because what you keep matters more than what you make. And most people lose decades here. Not through bad investments, through bad structures. Then came something most people avoid: longevity. Planning for the version of yourself that will exist 30 years from now. Because your future self is either your greatest ally or your biggest liability. Freedom today, without security tomorrow, is another trap. But the biggest shift happened quietly. Momentum. The day your money grows faster than your effort. Lucas experienced it on a random Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. Just numbers moving.
And a realization.
Time was finally on his side. That day, work felt optional. Not because he quit, because he had leverage. And leverage changes your posture. You negotiate differently. You speak differently. You live differently. You become harder to pressure. But Sarah warned him. This is where many high earners lose everything. Because success becomes identity. And identity becomes a prison. So Lucas learned strategic spending. Not deprivation. Not status. Alignment. Buying time.
Health.
Relationships. Freedom. Because the goal was never money.
It was autonomy.
And autonomy creates something rare. Calm ambition. Finally, automation. Systems so strong that wealth grew without attention. Because discipline scales. But willpower doesn't. And this is the real secret of your 40s. They're not about working harder. They are about building a machine. A machine that buys your future back. If you understand this, you change your financial life. Because once momentum starts, the game changes forever. And the next phase of Lucas's journey will reveal the biggest mistake high earners make after they finally feel free. And why many lose everything in the decade that follows. If you see yourself in this story, you're closer than you think. But the pivot must happen now.